Okay, welcome everybody to the Coach's Chronicle. My name is Jonathan Carroll. This month I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing Xavier Dagba, author of Scars of Gold. Xavier, welcome to the Coach's Chronicle.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I am really excited to dive in. Not only have you and I been working together for the last short while, but knowing some of your backstory and the way that you work, I think yours is an exciting story to tell, and I'd rather our listeners and our subscribers hear it from you firsthand. So before we get into your story, help us understand the heart of your work. When you describe yourself as a shadow integration facilitator devoted
Mhm.
to self-liberation, what does that actually mean? And what are you helping people to do?
There's so much lingo in that, so it's so appropriate to break it down. Maybe some of your listener might be familiar with it, with the shadow, which is the part of us that we usually repress in the dark, the collection of the aspects of ourselves that we usually disown and we keep in the dark, that we don't want to have other people see. And sometimes we don't even want to see ourselves. We want to pretend or live as if they are not there. So that's what the shadow is. And it is a collection of the feelings we don't want to feel, the pain we don't want to meet, the traits we don't want to embrace, and also sometimes the gifts we don't want to fully live and share with the world because we're scared. So the concept of integration is basically about reclaiming our wholeness. I often like to invite people to think of themselves as an ecosystem instead of a singular identity. It's like you have so many distinct traits within you, distinct aspects of you, and sometimes we stay stuck because our journey requires that we reconcile with an aspect of ourselves that we don't want to reconcile with yet. If I were to take an example, like somebody may be invited to become a coach, for example, and they don't like the idea of leadership. If you're a coach, within the container, you kind of have a little bit of a hat of a leader because you get to weave the conversation in ways that you believe might support the person you're holding space for. So if somebody is really afraid of that responsibility of leadership and they have repressed their inner leader, and they say, "Oh, I want to be a coach. I want to help people." It is natural that life is going to invite them to be like, "Okay, you're going to need to lead." So I'm inviting you to go in your shadow and bring forth the part of you that needed to lead at some point in your childhood, and you were blamed for leading the team of soccer in a bad direction, and the team lost the game, and you're like, "Oh, I never want to lead. I never want to be captain again," or something like that. So integration, shadow integration is basically reclaiming more of the aspects of who we are so that we can live free. And that's really the intention of my work.
Yeah, powerful. Xavier, you describe the shadow self as the dark face of your higher self, asking you to awaken. Can you unpack what that means for someone
Man,
encountering shadow work for the first time?
I get so much pushback when I describe the shadow self as the dark face of the higher self. And when I went in the universe of shadow work for the first time, there was just so much fear. So much fear that I saw in most of the writing and some of there's also so much occult that is done, that is written in the universe of shadow work. And I started to realize, man, this is not compelling. And I had a mentor who unfortunately passed away this year, Robert Masters. And he always told me he wrote 13 books and many around shadow work. He always told me I was never able to make shadow work popular. And I was like, why? He's like, well, people are scared of it. People are afraid of it. And I just told him, I was like, this has been the single most liberating thing I've ever had to do. And I started to explore ways I can really demonstrate the benevolence of the shadow. Because very often people are just seeing the shadow as this is what is ruining my life. This is a collection of the traits that are just making life a lot harder for me. And I was like, that stigma needs to shift a little bit so that people can actually approach it with a different frequency, a different energy. So the first thing that came to mind was if I want to operate from the perspective that everything that we navigate originates from the one source, from the one, you know, divine essence or God or whatever, then in my experience, if I only see the shadow as something dangerous, then I'm not seeing it fully. So what came up for me was a little bit like the yin yang symbol. There are the aspects that we are conscious of and the aspects that we are not conscious of. And the deeper I started writing on this, I started to realize every single time you say, I am ready to upgrade, I'm ready to grow, I'm ready to expand my work, my practice, my purpose, at that very single moment, you create a double activation, meaning you are invited to rise and you're invited to descend all at once. And the rise means, you embody more of the traits that make you look and feel radiant, and the descent is you have to deepen your roots. So you have to go deeper into your own soil to find the nutrients needed for your elevation. And the way I interpret this, it's the desire to expand tells your shadow, bring me right now everything I need to integrate so that I can become, who I want to become. So to me, I see that as profound benevolence. I see that as profound benevolence. Even when we are in our years of repression and pain, I only see the shadow as benevolent because the shadow will hold the things that you don't know how to hold consciously so that you can function in a world that does not know how to receive your fullness, so that you can function in a world where you don't know how to fully express your entirety yet. So what does the shadow do? Give it to me. I'll hold it for you. I'll hold it for you. I hold the pain you don't know how to hold yet. I hold the light that feels too blinding and that feels dangerous. That feels like it will put a target on your back. I will hold the traits that will make your dad mad at you. I will hold, everything that you don't know how to fully hold consciously yet. And I see that as benevolence. That's the reason why I arrived to the conclusion. The shadow must be the dark face of your higher self. It's not, and our higher self, we internalize it as the loving, supportive energy and all of that. And the shadow is a little bit of the bad cup. That's just like, well, this is the hard pill you have to swallow, but you actually need to swallow it to reclaim more of your power. So that's the conclusion that I came to.
I've never heard it described by that, even by you, and like that, even by you. And it's so beautiful. It's so, um, it sounds like your sacred bestie holding on to your deepest, darkest secrets until you're able to unpack them, until you're
Yes.
able to face them and have a cup of tea together.
Yeah. And that bestie is also willing to be seen as the bad guy your entire life. It's
To
that
take the
bestie is
shit.
like, I'll take the shit. I'll be the scapegoat. You can blame me for everything that is going wrong in your life. I'll take the blame, Blame your unconscious mind, blame your subconscious, blame your patterns, blame me. Tell me I'm evil. And yes, I also believe that within our shadow there is our access to, like, quote unquote what we may see as evil consciousness. We can really do freaking dark things if we let ourselves. So the shadow is like, I'm gonna hold even that. I'm gonna hold your capacity to do some of the darkest of the dark on planet Earth. And you're gonna see me as the bad guy. Yes, I'm okay with that. And the moment you're ready to expand more, I'm waiting for you here. You're gonna have to go through me. So that's how I see it.
This isn't a question I prepared, but how does that level of shadow play into the world expressing its evil nature?
Say more. What level of shadow precisely?
If the shadow's capable of doing some dark shit, right,
Yeah,
on anyone's behalf,
yeah,
and we see many spiritual people will resonate with the world is going through a shift right now where
yes,
things are coming to a head. We are
yes,
seeing it get worse before it gets better. Perhaps
yes,
that's a perspective to hold.
yeah.
So if that is the case, then what is the shadow doing in these people at this time? Is it waking people up to their fullness? Is that part of its expression? What are we witnessing right now in the collective shadow?
I think in the collective shadow, there is a big invitation to, like, If the shadow could speak, okay, this is my interpretation of what the shadow would say, or the collective shadow. I need all of you at the individual level reclaim your own capacity for evil. And that's like, that's like a big ask. Reclaim your capacity for darkness. See all the wrongdoings that these people are doing, and do not put yourself on a pedestal above them. Here is our knee-jerk reaction, especially for people who are good people, I would say. People who want to do
Of
good
the
in the
light.
world. Exactly. It's
Okay.
like, oh, this person is less than human. And I get that, by the way. I'm not trying to be the advocate of the devil here, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that person is less than human. Oh, no, 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 no. It's like every single time we perceive somebody who is doing things that we see as unconceivable, we need to dehumanize them so that we do not belong with them. And the shadow is basically like, this is what you are capable of when you disown love. Own it.
Mm.
Look at it, own it. This capacity is alive and well within you. It is alive and so freaking well within you. Do you believe that I don't know how many millions of Germans were in Germany during Nazi Germany? Do you believe that all of them were just like evil scum of the earth? That a kid that was born in there was like just by default for being born in there, he was just like soiled to the core. And I'm gonna go as far as saying I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe that we can live in an ecosystem that fosters, that brings forth some traits within ourselves that can be profoundly damaging, some beliefs that can be profoundly damaging. So I think on the collective level, the shadow is saying, reclaim your capacity to do the darkest of the dark so that it can no longer hijack you, so that it can no longer, take over and, you know, I'd say hurt people in the dark. Because that's totally possible. Some of the most heinous crimes have been done in the name of God, in the name of like doing the right thing. So the shadow is basically like, hey, open your eyes. Open your eyes. Don't put yourself on the pedestal. Many people put themselves on the pedestal of goodness and committed some of the most heinous crimes. So just like watch that. I believe some of that is happening right now.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you. Your approach bridges Jungian psychology, somatic experiencing, spiritual wisdom, and transformational coaching. How did those four streams come together for you, and what does each one contribute that the others can't?
So this is really, the way I developed my approach to coaching has been seeing what works and trying to add to it the things that I believed would close the gaps. My first training as a coach was just like transformational coaching. First kind of like training, I just went in that universe. My first program that I created as a coach was Purpose Accelerator. My intention was just to support people in doing the work that they came here to be. And then I started to realize in my own personal story what made the big shifts where my ability to address the repressed pain that I hadn't dealt with. That made the biggest shifts in my own personal journey. So I was like, okay, there needs to be an aspect of working with our repressed pain, working with our trauma, which is the other piece of training that I embrace. And after that, I started to realize that, even our pain, it is not this kind of like unique thing. There's so much complexity, especially when I would work with people with complex PTSD. I was like, wow, there's so much complexity here. This this experience that created so much fracture within this person is inviting them to reconcile with so many different fractured aspects of themselves. So I was almost forced into the language of Jung and starting to realize, there is an entire ecosystem that lives inside of us, like an entire ecosystem of parts. So there was the introduction to part works and IFS therapy and all of these different things. And then the more you dig, the more you start realizing, well, people like Young had already created a body of work that used that language, and some other people had just taken that and created some modalities on top of it. So that's how it starts to be built. And the somatic component is just like, well, the body has to be the center of integration. It has to be the container of integration because a big part of shadow integration is, can I build the ability to stay here when something that I don't want to be with is activated and flared up? When a trigger flares up, can I build the capacity to stay in my body when an emotion that I was conditioned to repress is coming up? Can I stay here? Because if I say no, I cannot be with this, I will dissociate or repress. So the somatic component needed to be there. And especially when I started including even more work with, I started to realize many women had a strong lingo when it came to, emotions and stuff like that, the language for it. And when I deepened my work with men, I started to realize, oh, I need a shift of approach. I started to realize that, especially with men, when you are able to build a bridge to the body and they are able to connect with this, with this flesh and how some emotions can move within them, even if they don't necessarily understand it, even if they don't have the full language for it, like others may have, it leads them to transformation because they are able to build that capacity to be with more of what is going on inside. So it was a trial and error and creating transformational journeys and realizing how it moves with people and also taking clues from my own personal experience and liberating myself from the shoulds of the initial trainings that I took as a coach, which is, hey, the goal is transformation. That's the end goal. It is not becoming an ideologue, which is, oh, this is the method that I learn and I'm going to stay true to this regardless. I'm like, no, I get to evolve. And at the same time, I like to, you may know this, I like to see myself as a mad scientist a little bit, which is somebody who is tempting to create the recipe that works for the person that I have in front of me because we are so different. But through the practice, I started to realize I need to bring so many different elements into my work to be able to support uniquely the person I have in front of me. And so far, this is the list of ingredients that seems to work for me at the moment.
Love that. You call self-liberation your muse, and
Yes.
integration the art. In
Yes.
practical terms, what does integration actually look like when someone is doing the work?
When someone is doing the work, what I mean by self-liberation, the muse is that's the thing that I'm infatuated with being free. I'm infatuated with the idea of creating something that's meaningful to your heart and dissolving any limitation or blocks that seems to stand in the way. And in my personal experience, I realized trying to talk myself into a way of thinking didn't necessarily work. Trying to pep talk myself into a way of believing and looking at the world did not necessarily work. Insights is great, but I've seen that integration is what takes insights to embodiment. I know, and even there are so many insights in my head that I do not fully live yet. And these are the things that I don't allow myself to teach yet. And the insights that I'm able to fully live, I've realized at some point in time, there was an aspect of me that I had to embrace even more in order for to have that insight turn into embodiment. Maybe I should take an example for that to be less conceptual. When I became a dad, for example, you know, there was an insight, which is doing the very best I could to be a calm parent, to be a calm dad. What happens when your kid is displaying exactly the traits that you were conditioned to repress as a kid yourself and that you thought you had fully integrated? And then you start to see how you are possessed by the conditioning that caused you to be repressed growing up. So I started to see like, wow, the version of my mom or the version of my dad that kind of worked to repress this trait. Oh, that version is alive inside of me, and I thought I had done all, most the inner child work around that specific trait. I was like, oh, there's the other side of that inner child work, which is to work on the part of me that wants to enforce the same conditioning. And that's the part of me that I need to look at right now and to learn to love, not just to banish into the shadow. Because if I banish that into the shadow, I'm going to find some more covert things to try to repress these traits in my kids. I'm like, no, I need to look at you. I need to see you. I need to see, you know, why you believe that repressing that in my kid is the best way to love him. And maybe there's a way even if it's a trait that I believe is not necessarily the best way to show up in the world within my kids, meaning if they show up as disrespectful, for example, to their mom, and I just want to scream, I'm just want to like, what, who the hell do you think you are? Blah, blah, blah. Like maybe there's another way. Maybe there's just another way to convey the message. That respecting your mother is something that's important without repressing the child. So I start to realize that integration to me is the name of the game. So every single person who comes towards me and says, "Hey, I want to do this. I want to create this." The automatic conversation that goes in my head is, what are the things that this person needs to learn to love within themselves so that they can more easily create what they say they wish to create? That constantly guides the way I hold space, the way I facilitate, and that's why I say integration is the muse. And integration is at the core of the word, it's integer. It's like coming whole. It's going back to the one. So integration is really a work of integrity. And integrity here, I'm not necessarily using integrity as in, you know, honoring your values. No, that's not that form of integrity. It's meant, I speak of integrity as, the wholeness of something. Your capacity to go back to the one. And as you're able to go back to the one, that's your axis of power, in my experience. So, yeah, that's what I mean by integration as the muse.
I wasn't going to go here, but you just led us here, I think. So as I've been reflecting a lot on the work that you and I have been doing together, and as I'm integrating the shadow, um, what I'm reflecting on is that we have the entirety of the universe inside of us. It is back to unity consciousness. It is the center point of the infinity. So, what is the shadow's relationship if we're looking at it through that spiritual lens of oneness and unity consciousness?
I want to make sure I understand that fully. What do you mean by what is the shadow's relationship?
What is its place in the entirety of the one? Like
Yes.
what, where are we missing that in our typical interpretation of unity consciousness or oneness?
Yeah. I think there is something really fantastic that happens right there. And I see that as two movements, two dual movements. The place of the shadow, I believe it's when it flares up, listen to it. It's like to build a healthy relationship with the shadow as a whole. Very often I hear people who want to be done with their shadow work, which is they want to, it's almost as if they want to block 6 months of their lives, do their shadow work and be done with this. And I get that feeling. I had that feeling at the beginning. Sometimes it visits me very often. What I keep realizing is like, yes, the journey of going to unity consciousness is integrate what the shadow is bringing. What life will naturally activate shadow material that you need to integrate at any point in your journey. That's the purpose of life. The purpose of life is at any point in time to attempt to return you to your wholeness. You know, that's the purpose of life at large, in my experience. And the shadow is just there serving and you know playing that role of being a conduit maybe, or maybe the space holder of everything that you're not yet ready to see within yourself. Is the end goal to purge completely the shadow? I'm not sure in this lifetime as human beings. I think it is more to create a healthy relationship with it.
Mm.
Meaning, getting into a place when shadow material emerges, you're like, okay, I see what's happening here. Let's go have a talk. Then, I refuse to go through 6 months of resisting this. I refuse to go through 1 year of resisting this. I refuse to go through like 2 years, some people 10 years of resisting this. Let's go for a talk. What is happening? What am I not seeing? What do I need to see that I'm unwilling to see? I think it is that relationship, just building that talk. It's like the shadow is trying to say, hey, I'm not out to get you. I'm not trying to make your life miserable. Can we build a healthy relationship? So I think that is one of the first movements, like going towards that. And then I think the other thing that the shadow is trying to say is, as long as you live on this human plane, and don't try to destroy me. I serve a purpose. I serve a purpose. Like accept me as a cooperative component of the mechanics of your consciousness on this realm. Like accept me as such. It's like I think sometimes we try to bend reality into and say, I'm gonna become shadowless. I'm like, oh really? Okay, I would love to see that. You know? And maybe this is me speaking from my limited mind because I really believe that from this 3D plane, until we really shift dimensionalities, which is also a very real possibility, until we really shift dimensionalities. But on this human plane, I think the shadow is here to be met, to be honored, and not necessarily to be fully destroyed, but to be honored as part of the mechanics of consciousness on this realm. And the moment we accept it as part of the mechanics of consciousness, it is absolutely not personal. It doesn't mean that you're not spiritual enough. It doesn't mean that you haven't done enough work. It doesn't mean that you're a bad student of your own practices. It just means this is part of the mechanics. And when it comes up, just like a mechanic opens the hood to see what is not going well there, you open the hood and you're like, okay, what's happening here? My car makes these weird noises. I have a hard time driving 100 kilometers. It's just open the hood and look at it. Your engine is not trying to ruin your life. So that's my perspective at this moment when it comes to the shadow.
Oh, so much. Yeah, I've reflected a lot on unity consciousness and oneness as being the intersection of all dualities. And
Yeah,
so, what is the shadow if not the other side of light? And so, it exists in the equation of oneness 100%.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I wonder if you could take us back to the late 2000s at the beginning of your what you call your spiritual awakening. You
yeah.
said that the path found you rather than the other way around. What was actually happening in your life at that time?
Well, the late 2000s, I was looking for myself, I was basically had my first higher education degree. I was, to be a math teacher. That was in 2009. In 2010, I had the first degree in mathematics. So I just took these steps and I was like, I don't think this is it for me. And I kept looking for the thing. So, and around that time, we're talking about, I don't know, 2006, 2007, 2008, this boom of The Secret by Esther Hicks. I mean, there's Esther Hicks, all these teachers, the movie The Secret comes out, and I'm like, oh, this makes sense. This speaks to something that I had already felt. I couldn't put my finger on it. So I started that journey of finding these spiritual teachers. I was born Catholic, and I still have an affinity to many, teachings that I received from that. And but I was just starting to explore this open field that spirituality is, finding teachers like the Wayne Dyers, the Louis Hayes, and Neil Donald Walsh book Conversation with God. And I'm just like, oh, this is really interesting. I like this rabbit hole. And I kept diving, you know. And but that was my side thing. Even when I was still in Cameroon, when I was born, I didn't really talk about all of that with anybody. Even when I start meditating, I know these things can be freaky for people that for family and for people that I was surrounded with. So it was just my side thing in the closet. So I keep pursuing things. I keep pursuing this feeling of like meaning in my life. And I was like, okay, maybe I just need to find another pursuit. So I get into this school, master's in economics and statistics, which I get. And then, with flying colors, I get offered a scholarship to come to Montreal to pursue a PhD, which I accept as well. So around that time, the late 2000s, early 2010, up until 2013, when I started the PhD program, there was this nagging voice in my head that was just like, deep down, this is not it. And I was like, yes, but then what is it? What is it? And in 2014, I come to this, you could say, second dark night of the soul or second awakening, whatever the hell was happening. I couldn't drag myself to university. Maybe it was because I was in a different country by myself, and I no longer felt the kind of either the support or societal pressures. I was just like, it took me 1 year to convince myself to let go of the PhD for many reasons. One of them being I was receiving a scholarship, I was paid to study. And that was, to be honest, that was a big one. The other one was reputation. Like, look at this guy, top of his class in his master's, being given a golden opportunity of a scholarship, different country. He's just gonna blow it all. So that was the shadow opening the door for me. It's like, in order to find your path, you have to let go of the paths that people think you should stay on. And that really, it was an identity destruction, complete identity destruction. I became the fuck up. I became the guy who people thought somebody cursed me. I became the guy who did not make sense by my family. It's like I went from hero to zero in their eyes. And my pride was attached to it. Who doesn't like being seen as the person that people look up to? So that is what happened. And I was doing all this kind of like positive thinking and was like, no, I'm gonna manifest my way. I'm gonna think positive my way out of all of that. And then there was a call of shame. And that shame was like, my friend, you're not going anywhere if you don't come and see me. If you don't come and start and learn to love the things within yourself that you've been conditioned to see as inadequate. Not succeeding at school, in my family, where school was of salvation, academics or salvation, getting the highest paying job you can reach for or salvation, that was inadequacy. Especially growing up in a country that was in crisis, the currency was devalued for like a big amount of time. I saw my parents work themselves to the bone to be able to send us to a private school just because we were the bet. We saw them just bet on us. They had 6 kids. I'm the second one. And here I am, one of the oldest ones. I'm basically being the bad example in their eyes. Oh, that was just identity shredding. And that threw me right into the universe of the shadow, which is, oh, you're going to meet your shame. You're going to meet the alien inside of you because right now you feel alone. You feel unwelcome home. You feel like you have to, I don't know, you're walking by yourself. You're going to have to reinvent yourself by yourself. Some tiny moments of ideation, suicidal ideation, moments of just like considering seriously, I'm just going to be homeless and I'm just going to walk around there. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to beg for money or I don't know, man. And that followed me up to the point when there was a period of losing my status as a student. And I didn't have the funds to apply for the next visa. So it took me so much time, just like out of status. And I was just like, bro, you've reached it. You're the scum of society to the point where you even have no status. Shame on you. Emerging from that was, you know, I was thrown into the shadow by making these choices. And if I wanted I've always been driven by the desire to feel significant. I want to feel like my presence matters. And if I wanted to return to feeling some kind of significance, to feel some kind of like my presence here matters, even that moment needed to matter. Even that moment of being in a dump needed to matter. And I was like, okay, show me how this matters. And that was my prayer to the divine, my prayer to God. So these were the years like where I really consolidated the foundation needed to do this work.
Between 2015 and 2018, I think it was, you moved through what you call shadow careers.
Oh yeah,
Everything from networking, network marketing, fitness
yeah.
coaching. I think you owned a gym for a little
Yes.
bit with your
Alpha
wife.
shape, we called it.
Yeah. So looking back, what were those experiences actually preparing you for?
Yeah.
And why were
You know,
they
the sh
shadow careers?
I think sh a shadow career, the way I like to define it, it's a career that is very close to what your soul is asking you to do. Something that is really, really close, but it's not really it. And it's the proxy that feels safest to go for. I knew I wanted to support people. I knew I wanted to help, but the thought of doing life coaching back then, some of the people that I admired, I mean, the Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn. I found Tony Robbins after I found people like Jim Rohn in the network marketing company that I was involved with. Jim Rohn supported them a little bit, and he coached a lot with people from there. So I found Jim Rohn, and then found Tony Robbins. I found these aspirational voices that were just like, man, is this guy just like paid to help people shift their mental states and to create the life they want? I was like, this is calling to me. And then I'm like, who am I? This is like a boy who just came from Cameroon, arriving in the West, and he didn't even know what transformational coaching or life coaching or even speaking was, you know, 3 years prior. Yes, I saw the spiritual teachers, but I was like, I can't even see myself there. Like, I cannot aspire to be like a Wayne Dyer. He has a PhD in psychology and then blah, blah, blah. And then I don't know. So there were these things that I aspired to, but that I did not want to own. And when you don't want to own something, your shadow has a way to kind of make you consume your own light. It will show you people who are embodying it, but that you are like, oh, these people that you put on pedestals. So in that way, you consume your own light instead of emanating it. And this is basically your shadow saying, hey, this is also possible for you. And I was in denial. So the closest thing that I could do was, what is something that feels close enough to helping people? Well, nutrition and health coaching, fitness coaching. I can help people, trying to get fitter. I've done it. I had built consistency in the gym, and I can get training to do that. And I can also build a gym, start a gym. So I did it and started realizing, oh my God, really bringing myself to promote this thing. Um, was really hard. My heart wasn't fully there. So, and even when I was sitting with my coaching clients, instead of really spending too much time on the plans and the fitness plans and the nutrition plans, we were talking about how they feel, their inner states, their emotional state, what is happening in their lives, their mentality, the mindsets, and really resolving some of that. I didn't even realize. There's one client, I will never forget her name, Denise Jones. She's like, you are more my life coach than you are my fitness coach. And I am so grateful for it. And when she said it out, it just like electricity ran through my body. I'm just like, whoa, 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 what is going on there? And she went along, she just explained even more. She was just sharing her gratitude and all of that. And I was like, okay, I need to listen. So I went from network marketing in still, it was just health products and it was adjacent to helping people with their nutrition and all of that and fitness coaching and all these different things that were adjacent. And I think it was 2018 when we closed down the gym in 2018. And I was like, and we were in, we, I was this close to signing a new lease to start another gym. And I was just like, no, this is not the way. I need to reinvent myself here and really accept that. So I went from shadow career to what feels closer to what I'm really here to do. But I think the shadow careers were stepping stones. stepping stones to really embracing first that I have value to offer that I couldn't see back then. Stepping stones in realizing that through coaching these people, I actually saw transformation, real transformation with every single one of them. And I was just like, oh, this really kind of works. So it built my confidence. So a shadow career is not negative. It is something that could be like a stepping stone. It is close enough, but you don't want to stay stuck there. Really just don't want to stay stuck there. It's supposed to be a stepping stone. It helps you build some skills. When we owned the gym, for example, I had to lean into marketing. In network marketing, for example, I had to lean into like talking about what we offer. Just I had to build all these skills that right now are serving me in my work. I had to learn how to sell a product. I had to learn how to sell a program that I believed in. I had to, I was running challenges all the time in there. There was one specifically that we were known for, the Lean 15 challenge. It was just like 15 days to show people that they can if they give themselves permission to change how some of their habits. 15 days felt like, okay, people can commit to 15 days. It's about 2 weeks. If I tell them 30 days, they get like a month. All right, let's go for 15. Anyways, I learned how to build a program designed for people. I learned all these different skills that right now I use every day in my work. So if anybody is listening to this, the question that I would invite them to consider is like, what are some adjacent careers that you've had that you can actually pull from that can serve your true purpose?
A line that I love to use is your life is leaving you clues.
Yes.
Yeah. You've made a striking claim that in these times, repressing our brightness has become harder on the nervous system than repressing our deepest pain. What led you
Yeah.
to that conclusion?
Oh, personal experience. Personal experience. In 2016, I started developing some weird asthma symptoms that did not make sense to me because I was the healthiest I had ever been in my life, and it was just out of the blue. And that that was one of the years where, I mean, we made the deal to get in business with another business partner with whom we ultimately, started our gym. And even then, I was just like, oh, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is not where what I'm supposed to do with my energy and time. That was so present, but I did not honor that. And these were the years of profound negotiation with myself. It's just like, oh, I feel compelled to do something, but I'm too scared. I don't want to. Or I feel like I have already made a fool of myself so many times. Dropping the PhD, this gym thing must work. That was the big thing as well. Like reputation was on the line. It's like, okay, you said you were not going to do the PhD. Great. You started network marketing. Okay, cool. Where are you going with that? Is it successful? The gym, is it successful? Now you're being seen as more of like a fuck up if you're gonna shut down the gym. Because starting the gym itself was an element of pride a little bit. It was like, oh, look, family, now I have a gym. Even if I can barely pay myself, even if I can barely, you know, I have to get a second job to be able to just pay for my bills. I was working in a restaurant as a chef on the side of having the gym. And I was like, but the gym represented that element of pride. And he was like, oh, I have to let go of my pride again to honor what is really true. And during the years of negotiation, I just started feeling it was so taxing on my system, taxing on my energy. It got me literally sicker. And in 2018, when I make the shift to let go of that, like I feel my body just return to a state where I'm no longer fighting myself. It's just like it's either your body is an arena for a war with your soul, or your body will be the arena of you working in harmony with your soul. I do not want my body to be the arena where I fight with my soul constantly. And I'm finding that these fights with our purpose, these fights with our soul, they leave damage in our cells. That has been my personal experience. I've seen that with many people that I've coached as well. And that's the reason why I'm saying it is so taxing on our body, repressing our creativity, repressing the ideas that are, divinely inspired. It is high friction energy. And we are holding that high friction energy within this ecosystem. Every time my immune system decreases, I usually ask myself, okay, this is one of the check marks, almost like my diagnosis. It's like, what is an inspired idea? What are the inspired ideas that I've had over the last few weeks that I've been having a fight with? And my body is telling me, stop it. And yes, I'm gonna look at all the other things, health factors that I need to look at, but that's usually top of my list. I never want to go back again to being in a fist fight with my soul. No.
Xavier, I feel like we could do an entire interview on that alone, just people ignoring the nudges from their soul to move forward with their mission, their purpose, et cetera, their original blueprint, I like to call it. Um, Much of your work centers on light workers and thought leaders who are holding themselves back from shining. What are the most common hidden forces you see keeping them stuck?
Yeah. Whew. This is, and I'm gonna say to all the light workers listening to this, this is not a personal attack. We are together into this. We have our virtuous addictions, and I believe that they are one of the biggest things that are keeping us trapped. It's like we love being aligned. We love feeling inspired. We love all the different things. We love feeling clarity. We love feeling uncertainty. Feeling certain sorry. But we are living in some of the most uncertain times ever. That requires that we need trailblazers more than ever before. And I see the collective of like thought leaders, light workers, people in position of service as the ones who need to go first in a land that is uncharted, in a land that is like completely mysterious, that does not make sense. So, or virtuous addictions, such as addiction to purity, for example. There's an archetype that I started using a little bit more lately, the Puritan. Most people love, especially most people in this line of work, they love when you are doing the practice well. They love the purity in their work. They love the purity in like the way they approach the altar, the way they pray, the way they do the breath work, the way they do, I don't know, man. We just want to be so fucking perfect. And I'm just like, Jesus freaking Christ. Sometimes it just takes the magic out of the whole thing because we are in this space where so many paradigms need to be reinvented. I came to this conclusion. One of the greatest skills we can develop is the ability to shine our light imperfectly, like so imperfectly. It is to bring back our humanness there. I feel like this is the place where our human self and our higher self reconcile fully, where we break the pedestal. Because who is, there's a quote by, I like something from David Goggins. It's like, who's going to carry the boats? I think your human self is going to carry the boats. What I mean by the boats, it's the consequences that come with shining your light. Your higher self is this profound, deep essence that wants to move through you, yes. But now, when you allow yourself to go out there and to express what is meaningful to you, man, these kind of fears, the fear of humiliation, the fear of alienation, the fear of like not being understood by people around you, your human self has to feel all of that. Light workers do not like to experience these kind of fears. And because we don't like to experience that, we basically operate from this perspective. When I trust that I am able to shine my light perfectly, I show up. When I trust that I am aligned, I show up. When I trust that it is coming from the highest essence of, I don't know, of God or like the 12th dimension or whatever, oh, I will show up. And then your human self is just like, who's gonna give you that? Who's gonna give you these certainties? Um, and this is my, feedback to the Lightworkers Collective. It's like, get off the damn pedestal. And that's also to myself. Let's be human again. Shine your light imperfectly. And if I were the devil, I would want to make the brightest lights in the world to believe that they must shine their light perfectly. And because I know, that is how I would get them to not shine at all. If I were the devil, I would infect some of these beliefs so that there is this addiction to being seen sometimes as holy, or there's this addiction to, by the way, it's done with so much good heart. We want to do the freaking best work we can at every single point in time. So, yeah, it is challenging. It is challenging. The messy light worker, I think that's what is needed right now. It's like the person who is like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to screw something. I'm going to fuck things up. I'm going to be the mad scientist. I'm going to take this light and you know what? I am going to blast it to the world. And sometimes I will realize, well, I went a little too hard, and then I will calibrate or recalibrate. And sometimes I'll realize, you know what? I can go a lot harder. I've been trying to play it safe. So this is the rate. I think we are living in a collective that so many people want to go online, so many people want to be seen, so many people want to do that. And I am realizing some of the brightest lights usually have a little bit of a pull back. They want to escape the noise. They don't want to participate in some of the craziness, and I get that and I understand that. They don't want to be associated with all of that, and I understand that and I get that. And I also realize that, oh, these are the consciousness first responders. We actually need these people out there, not to add to the noise, but to disrupt the noise. I want when my algorithm is suggesting some creators and I scroll, I want somebody to take me out of my trance of like just scrolling and scrolling when I'm possessed by the algorithm. I want somebody out there that will be like, take a deep breath with me. I'll drop your phone and go hug your kids. I want somebody who does that. I want somebody who is going to show up like that. And I want to be that for some people. And this is the reason why I really want to work with this collective because I don't think it is a time to hide or light. Yes, take care of your mental capacity. Yes, take care of yourself. Yes, to all of this. And at the same time, can you allow yourself to shine your light imperfectly in a world that is trying to convince you that it's not the way? So yeah, that's what's going on.
And you are, my friend, you are that for many people. Um, Surrendering to this work deepened your relationship with the divine quite clearly and your own inner divinity. For people who are approaching this work without a spiritual or a religious frame, how does that dimension show up? What can they be looking for?
Oh, that's really interesting. I think one of the very important things that some people can do is to ask themselves what is their relational status with that word God, with that word, divine. It's like, and I think that's one of the first things to do. And I also think one interesting thing to do would be to de-dogmatize their relationship with God, because so many people have some form of like beliefs that have infected that relationship with the divine. We are seeing two swings going on at the moment. Some people who go deep down, like hardcore New Age, and some people who go hardcore back to fundamentalism at the moment. And that's okay. I'm like, do what brings your sense of like safety within yourself. But I also see that we are invited to embrace our own spiritual maturation, which looks a lot like maybe having less and less brokers between us and the divine. What I mean by brokers, it's like a guru, um, a priest, and I'm not saying they are not important, spiritual teachers. I'm not saying they are not important, but on the side of that, I feel like there is more and more of that invitation to spiritually um, claim or crown, if I'm going to put it that way. I think on a collective level, we are invited to embrace at an individual level more of an inner ordination. An ordination, if you are familiar with this kind of language, it's like the sacrament that priests take to be able to be a priest, basically. And there's a form of that in many spiritual traditions where you get recognized as somebody who can now commune with the divine. And the way I see it, that has always been available to everybody. So I would say if you have a concept of God that feels very foreign, um, God does not, or source or spirit does not need you to have a specific affiliation for you to be able to commune with it. You can start right there where you are. You can speak to it, you can engage it, and it wants you to engage. It wants you to engage it. And get ready because it will engage back. It will engage back. And I often like to offer to people, how about you ask directly, show me what it looks like for me to relate to you. Show me what it's like for me to have the most healthy and supportive relationship with you right now. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but I want to find a relationship with you that works at my current level of consciousness. So expect an answer. That may not necessarily sound like a channeling in your head or a download. That may not necessarily look like it, but that may be clues that may come through your journaling. I would say one of the things that it may, I hope it doesn't sound religious. I would just like to tell people, fucking talk to God, man. You've never needed a house of worship to be able to do that. You've never needed anything to be able to do that. Talk to that thing that also has a fractal that lives inside of you. There's a direct bridge within you, and you can talk to that thing. You can be like, I don't know what it's like to even begin. Show me the way. Hover over me today. Um, I don't know. Yeah, this is what's present for me at the moment when I usually have people having that kind of question. And also when people want to dive into the shadow, I often just like ask them, what is your concept of light? What is your concept of like inner divinity? Whatever you believe in, just ask that essence to work with you through this. To hover over you as we approach this thing that is tremendously scary to you. Just ask that essence to hover over you. Let it be your anchor back to the light because, we can lose ourselves in the shadow at times when we get in touch with deep sorrow and we feel our own depths of despair. Sometimes it can take us a minute to feel resourced again. So, yeah.
Man, hallelujah. Um, you talk about reclaiming authority and authorship of your path and letting your
Yes.
light call the shots. What does that reclamation look like in somebody's day-to-day life?
Yeah. Authority and authorship, these are two different words that have the same root. Author, meaning you're the writer. Authority means I write the rules of the way I live. And that means basically liberating yourself from your conditioning. Because if you are not liberated from your conditioning, then the rules are emanating from the conditioning. Whether it be familial or spiritual, doesn't matter. So authority requires, you know what, I am going to sit and get clear on what are my intrinsic values, and I'm going to let these values, and the values to me are the rules. I'm going to let these values define how I show up in all areas of my life, in the best of my ability. How I show up to serve, how I show up in integrity with my values. Authority is that to me. It's like I define my own code of honor. Now, authorship is I write the story, meaning, and that's through the choices I make. So authority is at the level of like, the rules, almost like your own personal doctrine. It's like your own personal version of your own Ten Commandments for your life. Are they approved by you? Are they written by you? Or are you just like subservient to somebody else's way of life? And the authorship is how I write the story through every choice I make. And this is a place where, letting our light call the shots is such a practice that is challenging because what I mean by that is some, when you allow yourself to connect, you receive a lot of inspired ideas. And the question is really, how often do you let the inspired ideas run the way you show up? How often do you let the inspired ideas translate into the choices you make? We have that capacity to bend the speed of light, meaning the speed of an inspired idea. And we can bend it when we become afraid. We can bend it when our resistance shows up and we do not resolve the resistance. Letting our light call the shots is this harmonious dance when the inspired idea comes and you take, you embrace the assignment needed for that inspired ideas to translate into how you act. Sometimes that inspired idea will shine a light on something in the shadow and say, "Hey, I need you to fall in love with this aspect of yourself so that this idea can be executed." And it's just the willingness to embrace that work, the willingness, I'm gonna take an example here so that it makes sense. If you're a coach here and you're like, hey, you know what? I want my work to support me more. I want it to, to help me create an abundant life. So there's this inspired idea to create a new package where you invited, for example, to amplify your prices. And amplifying your prices comes up with like, oh my God, who am I to think I am worth, quote unquote, this much money and I am worth this? So there is this kind of like deep inadequacy around being paid more for something that you offer, that this inspired idea is inviting you to look at. It's like, am I willing to go there instead of doing this work of like fist fighting with that inspired idea and just like, no, it's like, okay, let me go down there. Let me meet the part of me that believed that I would never be able to charge this much money for something that I have created of my own. It's like, yeah, if it was for another company, I would have been able to go there and be like, well, it is this much money. Do you want to pay for it or no? Well, you would be able to do that with complete detachment. But now that it is you being you putting a price tag on one of your gifts, you're like, oh my God, please don't reject my gift. It's like, therefore, there's the invitation to hold the price and to hold the fear, to have the gift, quote unquote, being rejected, and to let that be okay. Can I be the space that holds both of it? It's like, this is worth this. And it's completely okay for somebody to say, this is above my pay grade. I can't afford this without me internalizing that my gift is not good enough. So letting our light call the shots is just choosing to become a disciple of your higher self and of your shadow self at the same time. Meaning, every single one of them is going to present you what you need to embrace in order to expand more fully. And when we embrace that, when we become the disciple or even the devotee of both, and by the shadow self here, I'm not talking about, you know, becoming, doing evil shit. I'm just saying, when your shadow says, "Hey, the idea that you said you want is inviting you to meet and resolve this insecurity. Do you want to look at it? Yes? Okay, let's move faster. You don't want to look at it? Okay, let's take 6 months for you to wrestle with this idea, or let's take 2 years. And then hopefully you actually do challenge that idea or resolve that, and you don't decide that coaching is not working for you or that this idea is not working for you. So that's what I mean. It's very practical the way I see it. It's not just woo-woo language. Um, and I hope I've been able to transmit that a little bit.
I'm sure that whoever's meant to hear the message is hearing it perfectly clear. You describe your book, Scars of Gold. as more than a book about illuminating the shadow, calling it a blueprint for reclaiming and unleashing the power of the shadow that the shadow has been guarding.
Yeah.
What is that power, and why do you think so many people never claim it?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the golden shadow, which is the light we keep in the dark. It's, meeting the shadow and what some people would call the dark shadow or pain or fears, the traits we were conditioned to dislike. That's fantastic. No one escapes that. It's part of the journey. I like a lot the journey of reclaiming the light we are scared to fully reclaim. The gold in the dark, that's called the golden shadow. And it could be anything. It could be something that your bigness that scares you. It could be a gift that you've been wanting to express, but that you've been conditioned to see as inadequate, but you can't help thinking about it. It could be a passion that you disowned at some point in time because you thought it would cost you way too much than you would receive from it. And the journey of embracing the golden shadow is basically cleansing it from the prejudice that we put upon it. Maybe an example would be better. When I started my journey, when I looked at people like Jim Rohn, when I looked at people like Tony Robbins, when I looked at people like, let's even say Brennan Burchard, people who were like teaching and coaching and seemingly successful. And also another one, Kyle Sees. I was part of his community at some point, and he wrote a book. I wish I screwed this up that I really liked a lot. He was did a comedy special. He was a comic at some point in time, doing pretty well for himself, and he decided to leave all that behind you. And he did an event at I forget the place, but it was a big place, a few thousand people, and the event was packed. And the guy arrives here, he has nothing prepared. Also, he says, on the stage, like, I don't have anything prepared now. We're gonna let the now teach us. And I was just like, what the hell is wrong with this dude? So you just arrived here and nothing prepared, and people paid this money, and you're just gonna ramble basically. That's why I was feeling internally. I come from this academic world where you have your thesis, you have your points. I mean, you're defending a thesis, you're presenting something, you have slides and all of these different things. And here comes this dude who's just like hawking. And part of me is just like, this guy is talking out of his ass and all these different things. And I am hooked. And I'm angry that I'm kind of hooked. And it kind of makes sense. And I'm receiving value from it. So there is this sense of envy that is going on in the moment. And the envy is basically mirroring. This is also where your light is. You have your own version of this inside of you. Look into that. Reclaim that. Ask yourself, why are you in disbelief? Why wouldn't it be possible? Not just for him, but also for you. Why do you need to throw shade onto this? Okay, it's like, I, why aren't you willing to embrace this as a possibility? Not just for him, but also for you. So working with the golden shadow is inviting us to look at all the ways we project our light externally so that we can reclaim that inside of us. Because that's a lot of what we do with the shadow. With the shadow, we are masters at projecting. When somebody is evil out there and we don't want to reclaim it, oh, it needs to stay out. It's like, no, I can't reclaim my capacity for darkness. It needs to be somebody outside of myself. It needs to be a terrorist. It needs to be somebody who believes different than me. We do the same thing with our light. Oh, this person can do it. I can't. Oh, this person is so great. Their light is so brilliant. They are so radiant. I get to admire it. I could never be that, but oh, they are doing it so well. And then we admire them. Or who does this person think they are to do this? You know, every person being mad at billionaires is because we, deep down, we're like, oh, this person is embodying from at the core of who I am. I know that this is my abundant nature at the core of who I am. But when I say billionaire, I'm like, oh no, fuck this person, you evil, or you a satanist, or whatever. And God knows, it may actually be true. But at the same time, what I'm seeing is also a golden shadow projection of our own capacity for wealth and abundance, which is like externalized. I'm like, And at some point when I was working through money, I was like, I'm gonna bring every billionaire into my heart, even the ones that I believe are the most like evil son of a bitches out there. I'm gonna bring them back into my heart. And I'm gonna look at their capacity to create the abundance that they created for themselves, and I'm gonna be like, you know what? I'm just gonna bring that into my heart just for the sake of reclaiming my own version of this form of abundance. It doesn't need to look like that, but I want to feel that essence within me. Um, so the golden shadow is, in my experience, I mean, that's what I'm the most fascinated with when I'm talking about shadow integration and shadow work. There's so many different dimensions and directions where shadow work can go. I've done so much work around father wounding, mother wounding, and all the different things, working with the inner critic and all the different layers of the shadow. I wrote about that in the book. What I get passionate about really is when it comes to the golden shadow, when it comes to helping somebody see where are the areas of my life where I'm actually projecting my light. Who are the people that I like projecting my light on, whether it's through envy, through admiration, through putting them on the pedestal, through judging the way they are expressing their own light, and I'm like, oh, if I had it, I would do it better. If I had this much money, I would use it better. If I had this audience, I would use it better. If I had this influence, I would use it better. And then your shadow is just like, well, go build it. Go build your version of it. So I find it really fascinating.
Oh, I love that, man. I have a couple more questions for you, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna call it. There's a powerful idea in the heart of Scars of Gold that a freedom built on repressing parts of yourself isn't true liberation at all, but a performance rooted in self-abandonment. How does someone begin to tell the difference between embodying wholeness and performing it?
Whew. Um, I think at the core of performing wholeness, there is a form of avoidance. And that form of avoidance is usually rooted in kind of repressing what we believe would not contribute to that, to being perceived as whole, let's say. Um, some of the questions that I just love asking people is, what don't you want to be? What are the things that you hate to be seen as? Um, you know, And some people that I usually work with are like, oh, I don't like being seen as angry and reactive, and I don't like to be seen as like fake. I don't like to be seen as this and this and this. And then I will go ahead and ask them the question, where do you show up precisely as that? And if somebody tells me nowhere, I'm like, oh, you're posturing. Because if you want to be whole, actually, you can't say that I never express this thing. That means you are not operating from the field of wholeness, in my experience. An example, when I when I work with my kids, for example, and they've done something that is really triggering, and I do the best I can to show up as calm and collected, whereas I am holding frustration and anger inside, I am fake in that moment. I could name it as different. I could say in the moment I am whole, I am, containing myself and all of these different things. But if I was letting the thing that's inside of me in the moment where I'm like, oh, what the hell are you doing type thing, I would show up differently. But in the moment, I choose not to let the fire inside of me speak. And I choose to show up as more grounded, balanced in the moment. But there's an aspect of, there's a, and I choose not to let the kid, for example, necessarily sense the fire because I don't want to shock you. I want to build you in the moment. So I'm going to take this fire inside of me. I'm going to go work with that at a different time so that in this moment I can support your growth instead of stunting your growth, you know. But in that moment, it's kind of fake. It's kind of fake. I am still in touch with it. I still feel it. So it's just an example to demonstrate. Sometimes we like to operate from the template of purity, which is not really fully true. And the the question that I really like to ask people is just like, okay, what are the things you don't like to be seen as? Where do they have a place in your life currently? And if you are incapable of showing me where that specific thing has a place in your life right now, usually I'm just like, okay, the wholeness you're trying to show is form kind of performative to a certain degree. Because if you're really whole, then every single trait in the dictionary, every single trait has room inside of who you are. Every single trait, maybe in the past or the future, you have expressed that trait in a way that you may not fully see right now, but it still has some form of room there. And the willingness to embrace that, the work of integration is so humbling. It is so humbling. Embracing all light and all of these different things and being seen as the calm collected with equanimity and all of these different things. This is cool. Um, but really admitting to the places where, I also have this. I'm not very proud of that, but it is here. That's the real test. And it's not rooted in avoidance, it's rooted in ownership. It's like radical ownership of everything. Like everything, even the unholy. You know, I mean, I like a lot the work of Pema Chodron, which is just like, man, just own your bullshit. Just own your crap. She's this Buddhist nun, and I think she still lives in Canada. She's from the US, and I think I'm not sure. I don't know if she passed away yet, but last I checked on her, there was this Buddhist thing in Alberta where, when she came there, when she became the top of I don't know, the person in charge there, she could be so anal around the cleanliness in the kitchen, and she would get so anal, all the other Buddhists there, they just knew that about her. And she talks about her journey of working through that and like almost like recognizing how she could be anal around this. And it's almost the moment when she embraced what was the mess of the kitchen that almost like everybody around her shifted and the kitchen started being like almost more clean than she expected. It's the moment where she released her grip on things needed to be so pure and clean, especially in the temple and all of that. So yeah, performative wholeness um still disowns, the things that are held in the shadow in my experience. There's a slight form of spiritual bypassing there. But wholeness itself is like, you know what, I am capable of the darkest of the dark, and I am also capable of some pretty cool shit. And I want to own it all.
Absolutely. All right, final question for you. As you know, the Coaches Chronicle, the vast majority of our subscribers are coaches. And so if you could give one piece of guiding advice to a new coach entering the industry today, what would it be?
Dare to write outside the lines, you know, dare to write outside the lines. The reason why you were called the coaching is because, you know, um, there is a specific blueprint. There's a specific understanding of liberation. I believe we are all coaches of liberation. Whether you're a business coach, you are trying to teach people entrepreneurial expansion or liberation. If you are like a relational coach, you're trying to teach people how to have more free, feel more free in their relationships, having more connection and all of that. It's like in liberation in the sense of intimacy. So there's a unique flavor that only your soul senses there. There's a unique flavor, a unique approach. Yes, you can have your training. Yes, you can have all these different things. Yes, it's important to have a method. Um, but I like to encourage people to also honor that guidance that is inside of them. So that in the moment to moment relationship with the person, the unique person that they have in front of them that they are about to serve. Sometimes the combination of two souls coming together is going to invite them to go to a specific place that may sometimes be outside of what the methodology that they were taught is suggesting. And when you feel like it's appropriate, just go there. This is the reason as well why our industry is not regulated, because you know just like the clinical psychologist or therapist, they have to follow a strict um rule. And I'm not saying that it doesn't have their place, but I'm saying your intuition, your spiritual intelligence, give it maybe a little bit more weight in the way you are showing up, in the way you're facilitating. And yes, put in the reps, like put in the reps in like honing your craft and all of that. That's also important. Trust your own skill. And on the other side, it's like really trust that voice inside of you that's saying, hey, maybe today just do this thing that way. Just do this thing a little differently. Just honor that a little bit. And the other side is, man, shine your light imperfectly. Go out there, shine your light imperfectly. That would be the what I would say. Yeah. You're
Wonderful.
not trying to be Tony Robbins or I mean maybe you are, but I would suggest that you try to be you you. But yeah, it's like go and express that imperfectly. I think right now in the age of AI, in the age of like um yeah, in the age of AI, the people who show up authentically with an open heart are the people who will be magnetic.
Beautiful. Great words. Xavier, I love the work that you're doing. I love your message to humankind. I love your liberated self-expression, and I love you. So thank you for being here with us
I love you
today.
too, man. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate the where the conversation went. It's been a deep honor for me.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you too, man. Thank you.